fifth chapter of Exodus begins the story of Moses and the exodus of the children of Israel. Christians can learn a multitude from this story, but the most important lesson comes as Christians look at the persona of Pharaoh.
Pharaoh had no knowledge of Jehovah, no fear of him, no love for him, and therefore refused to obey him. Because of Pharaoh's contemptuous attitude, he allowed pride, ambition, and covetousness to harden him
To his own destruction.
In the beginning, Moses made a reasonable request unto Pharaoh. He asked only for a journey of 3 days into the wilderness to make a sacrifice unto the Lord his God. Pharaoh was unreasonable in saying the people are idle and have done nothing to merit this journey. Pharaoh misrepresents the people by finding fault
Where none should be found.
Today, all sorts of people, including Christians, become disposed to finding fault with their friends and neighbors because of the time that these friends spend in the service of God.
They blame these faithful ones because of a few hours a week spared from their lives for the Lord, when instead they should be blaming the ones that give twice that time to sinful pleasures.
But the most destructive part of Pharaoh's character was his greed and pride. He ought not have detained the Israelites.
They were God's people.
But Pharaoh expected sacrifices and services from them. He could not let them go because that would have meant he had to deny himself, and he was too greedy to do that. Pharaoh was also too prideful and ambitious to acknowledge the sovereignty of Jehovah God. He says in verse 2 of chapter 5,
Who is Jehovah?
I neither know him nor care for him, neither value nor fear him. Because Pharaoh looks at the children of Israel as his servants, he looks at their God as a weaker power than himself. In our world, there are many pharaohs walking around us every day. Many people are too prideful to see the absolute power of God. And in fact, they think that they are as powerful or even more powerful than God and taking care of themselves. Those who allow greed to get a stronghold in their lives are allowing ambition and covetousness to control them. The pharaohs of today can only expect the same kind of destruction to come to their lives as this Pharaoh of the Exodus.
Let my people go.
By James Weldon Johnson. And God called Moses from the burning bush. He called in a still, small voice. And he said, Moses,
Moses.
And Moses listened, and he answered and said, Lord, here am I. And the voice in the bush said,
Moses.
Draw not nigh, take off your shoes, for you're standing on holy ground. And Moses stopped where he stood. And Moses took off his shoes. And Moses looked at the burning bush. And he heard the voice, but he saw no man. Then God again spoke to Moses. And he spoke in a voice of thunder. I am the Lord God Almighty. I am the God of thy fathers. I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. And Moses hid his face. And God said to Moses, I've seen the awful suffering of my people down in Egypt. I've watched their hard oppressors, the overseers and drivers. The groans of my people have filled my ears, and I can stand it no longer. So I've come down to deliver them out of the land of Egypt. And I will bring them out of that land, into the land of Canaan. Therefore, Moses, go down. Go down into Egypt. And tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses said, Lord, who am I to make a speech before Pharaoh? For Lord, you know I'm of slow tongue. But God said, I will be thy mouth, and I will be thy tongue. Therefore, Moses, go down yonder into Egypt, and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses, with his rod in hand, went down and said to Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, let my people go. And Pharaoh looked at Moses. He stopped still, and he looked at Moses. And he said to Moses, Who is this Lord? I know all the gods of Egypt, but I know no God of Israel. So go back, Moses, and tell your God, I will not let his people go. Poor old Pharaoh. He knows all the knowledge of Egypt, yet never knew.
He never knew the one and the living God.
Poor old Pharaoh. He's got all the power of Egypt, and he's going to try to test his strength with the might of the great Jehovah.
With the might of the Lord God of hosts, the Lord mighty in battle.
And God, sitting high up in his heaven, laughed at poor old Pharaoh. And Pharaoh called the overseers. And Pharaoh called the drivers, and he said,
Put heavier burdens still on the backs of the Hebrew children.
Then the people showed with Moses.
And they cried out, Look here, Moses!
You've been to Pharaoh, but look and see what Pharaoh has done to us now. go!
And Moses and Aaron, with their rods in hand,
Worked many signs and wonders. But Pharaoh called for his magic women, and they worked wonders too.
so Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not.
No, he would not. Let God's people go.
And God rained down plagues on Egypt.
Plagues of frogs and mice and locusts. Plagues of blood and boils and darkness and other plagues besides. But every time God moved the plague, old Pharaoh's heart was hardened.
And he would not.
No, he would not.
Let God's people go.
And Moses was troubled in mind.
Then the Lord said,
Listen, Moses, the God of Israel will not be mocked. Just one more witness of my power.
I'll give hard-hearted Pharaoh.
This very night, about midnight, I'll pass over Egypt land. In my righteous wrath will I pass over
And smite their firstborn dead. And God that night passed over.
And a cry went up out of Egypt. And Pharaoh rose in the middle of the night, and he called for Moses and said, Go forth from among my people, you and all your Hebrew children,
Take your goods and take your flocks.
and get away from the land of Egypt. And right then, Moses led them out with all their goods and all their flocks. And God went on before.
A guiding pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they journeyed on in the wilderness and came down to the Red Sea.
In the morning,
Oh, in the morning, they missed the Hebrew children. 400 years.
400 years,
They held them down in Egypt.
held them under the driver's lash, working without money and without price.
And it might have been Pharaoh's wife that said,
Pharaoh, look what you've done! You let those Hebrew children go! And who's going to serve us now?
Who's going to make our bricks and mortar?
Who's going to plant and plow our corn?
Who's going to get up in the chill of the morning?
And who's going to work in the blazing sun?
Pharaoh.
Tell me that!
And Pharaoh called his generals.
And the generals called the captains. And the captains called the soldiers. And they hitched up all the chariots.
600 chosen chariots of war and 2,400 horses. And the chariots all were full of men.
With swords and shields and shining spears. And battle bows and arrows.
And Pharaoh and his army
Pursued the Hebrew children
to the edge of the Red Sea.
Now the children of Israel, looking back, saw Pharaoh's army coming. And the rumble of the chariots was like a thunderstorm.
And the whirring of the wheels was like a rushing wind. And the dust from the horses made a cloud that darkened the day.
And the glittering of the spears was like lightnings in the night. And the children of Israel all lost faith. And the children of Israel all lost hope.
Deep Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh's host behind.
And they mumbled and grumbled among themselves. Were there no grapes in Egypt? And they wailed aloud to Moses and said, Slavery in Egypt was better than to come to die here in this wilderness.
But Moses said,
Stand still. Stand still and see the Lord's salvation.
For the Lord God of Israel
Will not
forsake his people.
The Lord will break the chariots. The Lord will break the horsemen.
He'll break great Egypt's sword and shield, their battle bows and arrows.
This day he'll make proud Pharaoh know who is the God of Israel. And Moses lifted up his rod over the Red Sea.
And God, with a blast of his nostrils, blew the waters apart.
And the waves rolled back and stood up in a pile and left a path through the middle of the sea, dry as the sands of the desert.
And the children of Israel all crossed over